Shut it down, do the shut it down. Spin that little hat around and do the shut it down. Do the shut it down, do the shut it down. Spin that little hat around and do the shut it down.
Crash like distant drums. London fog, New York grind. Truth gets lost, hard to find. City sparks. City sparks. They fly so high, fake truths crumble. Can't deny Miami Heat, Paris dream, fighting the lies that split the seas. Cobblestones talk, whispers spread.
Good evening or afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to HAFEZ TV. My name is HAFEZ, and I'm your host today. Sorry, I just realized that there was no sound all along, so I'm glad that that someone pointed it out. Thank you for pointing it out, Mr. UG. Okay, this is going to be a fairly short video for just because a friend of mine actually inspired me because she wanted to know what was really going on in this Iran situation, and I had to leave her a very long voice message trying to explain how things are sort of panning out. But for now, let me just see if I can actually be heard. It seems that I can be heard, so that's good. I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so what are we talking about when we're talking about Iran? Hello. Okay, hold on a second. Why is this thing always so low? Why is it always low? Okay, I've turned it up, so hopefully it'll hold. I think I was on a different show, and the microphone was sort of turned down because of it, but I think I'm good now. It's the problem when you go on to other streams with your microphone low, or when they can adjust your microphone. Sorry, they simply the automated thing takes over. What the hell? Am I still muted? Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Sorry about this. Okay. Everything's good. Okay. Well, I hope it's not buffering anymore, Mr. UG. It's still, it looks good now. So we've got the kinks out. As always, there's always a little bit of a kink at the beginning, but then again, we do need to sort of let a little bit of time go by. We can hear you. Thank you, UG. Thank you, LTG Lieutenant. Good to see everyone in the chats. Guys and girls, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. We are gonna get on with it. We're gonna get on with it and see how things go. Why do I get these freaks? The algorithm, I think I clicked on one freakish looking individual on YouTube, and the algorithm is just feeding me all of these freaks and geeks. Unbelievable. I guess you have to dress up like that to catch attention these days on the old tubes, right? Okay. Let's get on it. Let's just get on it quickly. No messing about. No, God, I'm going to have to mute. Son of a bitch. Always. The case. Okay, where are we? Yeah, let us share thy screen. Thus, we can get along. Now, this is an old video. This is not a new video. You should have seen this a long time ago. I've been recommending this a long time from now since, but no one seems to pay attention to these things. These are the things that you need to pay attention to, boys and girls. This video is called Rules for Rulers. This video was created how many years ago now? 9 years ago. This video is almost a decade old. Hello, Smile, and UG and everyone else. Again, I think I've already acknowledged that. Thank you so much. So yeah, this video was made 9 years ago. This video is based on a book, Rules for Rulers. No, not Rules for Rulers. The video is called Rules for Rulers. It's based on a book called The Dictator's Handbook, which I've also recommended for everyone to either read or listen to the audiobook, whatever. However way you can find it and get it, because these are the things that explain what is happening in various countries and various interests. This will give you some hints of the kind of things that is likely to happen in Iran and so on and so forth, interest groups, etc. So we're going to play this video. It is 20 minutes long, but then this entire stream, I'm trying to keep it in an hour and a bit anyway, so I don't want it to go too long, because I do have another video to play for at least another 10-15 minutes after this one. So let's get on it, and I will try to commentate along the way. But this, as I said, is part of a much bigger book called Rules for Rulers. The Dictator's Handbook, which will give you a far more in-depth explanation. This is you could say, an abridged version. So let's get on it.
Problems in your country and know how to. Do you want to rule? Do you see the problems in your country and know how to fix them? If only you had the power to do so. Well, you've come to the right place. But before we begin this lesson in political power, ask yourself, why don't rulers see as clearly as you, instead acting in such selfish, self-destructive, short-sighted ways? Are they stupid, these most powerful people in the world, or is it something else? The throne looks omnipotent from afar, but it is not as it seems. Take the throne to act, and the throne acts upon you. Accept that or turn back now before we discuss the rules for rulers. No matter how bright the rays of any sun king, no man rules alone. A king can't build roads alone, can't enforce laws alone, can't defend the nation or himself alone. The power of a king is not to act, but to get others to act on his behalf, using the treasure in his vaults. A king needs an army and someone to run it, treasure and someone to collect it, law and someone to enforce it. The individuals needed to make the necessary things happen are the king's keys to power. All the changes you wish to make are but thoughts in your head if the keys will not follow your commands. In a dictatorship where might makes right, the number of keys to power is small, perhaps only a dozen generals, bureaucrats, and regional leaders. Sway them to your side and the power to rule is yours, but never forget, displease them and they will replace you. Now, all countries lie on a spectrum from those where the ruler needs few key supporters to those where the ruler needs many. This foundation of power is why countries are different, yet many keys or few, the rules are the same. First, get the key supporters on your side. With them, you have the power to act. You have everything. Without them, you have nothing.
Now, for those of you who actually, I mean, the funny thing is with Iran and people who want to bring back the former Shah, this video actually maps onto it quite well, because of the fact that he is going to be a king and that he's going to have the keys to power. Now, this is where Iran is at a currently kind of, you know, in that dead no man's land, in which who are the keys who are the keys on the side of? Are the keys on the side of the Ayatollah? Now, you could say this is a king that could just as easily put a mullah, a turban on his head, and he'll be a mullah, and he'll be the supreme leader. Now, he is losing these keys. He's lost the police to some extent. He's losing the treasury, and he's already had the army is already divided. Some against him, some for him, and of course he still has the loyalty of his IRGC and his mercenary groups in Iraq and elsewhere. But he is losing the keys. This is what essentially, this is what Israel did after October 7th, was to systematically destroy the keys to power for the Ayatollahs and the mullah regimes by destroying Hamas and various other interests and various other mercenary groups that they depend on, because they know that for a long time they've already lost a lot of the army and a lot of the police, as well as the people. The people are certainly not going to be on their side, so they can't just hand guns over to the people, because the people will turn those guns right around and kill them.
Now, in order to keep those keys to power, you must, second, control the treasure. You must make sure your treasure is raised and distributed to you for all your hard work, and to the keys needed to keep your...
Now, this is where things have now hit, the rubber has hit the road. This is why Iran finds itself where it is. The treasury is empty. The key, the supreme leader is unable to pay the keys to the power to keep his power base.
Position. This is your...
That is why the merchants shut down and came into the streets. When the merchants come out, that means the money is dried up. This is why it's happening, what is happening now. And this is, in fact, what America and Israel encouraged, which is to destroy the currency of Iran, create hyperinflation so that the treasury is essentially bankrupt. And then the keys start plotting. This is why the world is Game of Thrones, not Lord of the Rings.
Your true work as a ruler, figuring out how best to raise and distribute resources so as not to topple the house of cards upon which your throne sits. Now, you, aspiring benevolent dictator, may want to help your citizens, but your control of the treasure is what attracts rivals, so you must keep those keys loyal. But there's only so much treasure in your vaults, so much wealth your kingdom produces, so beware. Every bit of treasure spent on citizens is treasure not spent on loyalty. Thus, doing the right thing, spending the wealth of the nation on the citizens of the nation, hands a tool of power acquisition to your rivals. Treasure.
That is why being the so-called benevolent king and a benevolent dictator is in itself an impossible position. Because the more you are benevolent to your people, the less you're going to give to your keys, and those keys will scheme against you, and the rival they will bring another rival in power, which will then give them most of the treasure rather than the people, and overthrow you. This has been happening forever.
poured into roads and universities and hospitals is treasure a rival can promise to key supporters if only they switch sides. Benevolent dictators can spend their take on the citizens, but the keys must get their rewards, for even if you have gathered the most loyal, angelic supporters, they have the same problem as you, just one level down. Being a key to power is a position of power. They too must watch out for rivals from below or above. Thus, the treasure they get must also be spent to maintain their position. The loyal and dim may stay by your side no matter what, but smart key supporters will always watch the balance of power, ready to change allegiance if you look to be the loser in a shifting web of alliances. In countries where the keys are few, the rewards are great, and when violence rules, the most ruthless are attracted, and angels that build good works will lose to devils that don't. So buy all the loyalty you can, because loyalty in dictatorial organizations of all kinds is everything. For the ruler, anyway. Thus, the dictatorship exposed, a king who needs his court to raise the treasure to keep the court loyal and keep raising the treasure. This is the self-sustaining core of power. All outside is secondary. Now, a king with many key supporters has real problems. Not just their expense, but also their competing needs and rivalries are difficult to balance. The more complicated the social and financial web between them all, the more able a rival is to sway a critical mass. The more key supporters a ruler has on average, the shorter their reign. Which brings us to the third rule for rulers: minimize key supporters. If a key in your court becomes unnecessary, his skills no longer required, you must kick him out. After a successful coup, the new dictator will purge some of those who helped him come to power while working with the underlings of the previous dictator, which...
Now, you see, this is the funny thing. People are so incredibly uneducated about these concepts that they wonder why they keep going, Trump got rid of Maduro, but his power base, his government is still running, the vice president is still running the country, he hasn't changed anything. This is why they're idiots, because they don't realize that once you get rid of the dictator, you still have to work with those keys to continue managing the country. The keys didn't get overthrown. Maduro got overthrown. You can't just wholesale destroy the entire country by taking away all this management class, essentially, where they are actually, they're the ones who are actually running the show. So this is why you can take a dictator out and not collapse the country. But unfortunately, with mistakes that America made, or at least this is the perceived understanding that we're supposed to take, that the Americans made a mistake by taking out Saddam Hussein and all the keys, and thus throwing the country into a state of instability and civil war and insurgency. But a lot of people who are actually clued up recognize that actually that was by design, because they wanted Iraq to be in the state that it fell, so that certain interest groups can make money out of the areas that they wanted without too much oversight from the standing government. They wanted the government to be in a state of chaos so that they can take advantage of the various things that they wanted to take advantage of. Now we can get into the minutiae of all the different things that various groups like Bechtel, Halliburton, the Carlyle Group, and so on wanted to take advantage of. But just for you guys to know that it wasn't an accident that Iraq became the way it became. It was by design. And same with Libya, by the way. Syria to some extent, but not really. It's a different case with Syria.
From the outside seems a terrible idea. Why abandon your fellow revolutionaries? Are the old dictator's supporters not a danger? But the keys necessary to gain power are not the same as those needed to keep it. Having someone on the payroll who will...
That is why these revolutionary types are somewhat idiots as well, if they're naive. They don't realize that those who create the revolution and bring you to power are not the ones that you necessarily need to stay in power. This is why the Khomeini regime, the Ayatollah mullahs, killed all the communists and the socialists that helped them gain power, helped the revolution, started the revolution, were instantly executed after the revolution because they were not required to stay in power. They were just required to gain power. That is why, being a revolutionary type, these little young communists and socialists in America and so on, they're idiots because they don't realize that most often when they get their wish, when they get their revolution, they're more likely to be the ones lined up against the wall and shot.
Was vital in the past but useless now is the same as spending money on the citizens. Treasure wasted on the irrelevant. And by definition, a dictator that pulls off a coup has promised greater treasure to those switching sides. The size of the vault has not changed, so the treasure must be split among fewer. A dictator that sways the right keys, takes control of the treasure, cuts unnecessary spending, kills unnecessary keys, will have a long and successful career. Seeing the structure unveiled, you might be excited to get started and control a country to the benefit of you and your cronies, or you might be exhausted, wishing to do good but seeing the structural difficulties. Now turn to democracy for salvation. So let us discuss rulers as representatives. You again might have grand dreams of the utopia you wish to build, but no man rules alone, and never more so than in democracy. Presidents and prime ministers must negotiate with their senates and parliaments and vice versa, and they all have their own key supporters to manage. In a well-designed democracy, power is fractured among many and is taken not with force, but with words, meaning you must get thousands or millions of citizens to, if not like you on election day, at least like you better than the alternative. With so many voters and such fractured power, it's impossible to, as a dictator would, follow these rules and buy loyalty. Or is it? Of course not. Don't think of citizens as individuals with their individual desires, but instead as divided into blocks: the elderly or homeowners or business owners or the poor. Blocks you can reward as a group. Democracies have wildly complicated tax codes and laws, not as accident, but as reward for the blocks that get and keep the ruling representatives in power. Farming subsidies, for example, have nothing to do with the food a nation needs, but entirely with how key the vote of the farming bloc is. Countries where farmers' votes don't swing elections don't have farming subsidies. If a bloc doesn't vote, such as younger citizens, then no need to divert rewards their way. Even if large in number, they are irrelevant to gaining power, which is good news for you. One less block to sway, and the treasure you give your key blocks has to come from somewhere. If you want long years in office, Rule 3 is your friend in a democracy just as much as a dictatorship. You can't eliminate those who don't vote for you, but there is still much you can do. Once in power, make it easier for your key blocks to vote and harder for others. Establish voting systems that reduce the number of blocks you need to win. The more rivals you get, very handy indeed. Draw election borders to predetermine the results for you or your cronies, and have party pre-elections with Byzantine rules to determine who blocks even can vote for. Mix and match the above for even better power perpetuation. When approval ratings couldn't be lower, yet re-election rates couldn't be higher, you'll know you've succeeded. Now, enough with thinking about the citizens. Even in a democracy, there still are very influential individual key supporters you need on your side, because their money or influence or favors keeps you in power. While you can't just promise to give them treasure directly, as a dictator would, you can create loopholes for their investments, pass laws that they've written, or print get-out-of-jail-free cards for their actions. Not a wheelbarrow of gold to the door, but contracts for their business. You as a ruler do have roads to build, or computers to maintain, or buildings to reconstruct. No man rules alone, after all. Or you could take the moral path and ignore the big keys, but you'll fight against those who didn't. Good luck with that. Corruption is not some kind of petty crime, but rather a tool of power in democracies and dictatorships. but more on that another time. So accept the favors, sway the key blocks, and you will get into power, ruling with actions that look contradictory and stupid to those who don't understand the game, privately helping a powerful industry you publicly denounced, or passing laws that hurt a bloc that voted for you. But your job isn't to have a consistent, understandable ruling policy, but to balance the interests of your keys to power, big and small. That is how you stay in office. Now, with all this headache of being a representative, you may wonder, looking at...
By the way, if you're wondering why your average politician, your senator and your congressman and your MP actually spends most of their time calling up donors than they do constituents, is because of this. It's because they need the keys to the stay in power more than they need you to be happy about their work. This is why they pander to you. This is why they do all of this nonsensical shit, like Sadiq Khan named a bunch of train stations after feminist icons rather than actually having trains that run. It is far better to pander to a bunch of feminists because he knows that he's going to get their votes than to actually have trains that run. Having trains that work on time will not get you a re-election, but pandering to feminists by naming train stations after feminist icons gets you re-elected. That's why he would rather have feminist names for train stations that don't have trains that run on time.
Rule 3. Why couldn't you skip all this block building, favor trading nonsense and just bribe the army to take power? We must finally turn to taxes and revolts. You must understand Rule 2 and how the treasure is raised and used to hold a country together. If we graph the tax rate of countries versus the number of key supporters the ruler needs, there's a clear relationship. More democracy, lower taxes. If you're sitting comfortably in a cushy democracy, you may scoff at this, but your fellow citizens who don't earn enough don't pay income taxes and get rebates, bringing the average tax rate down. In dictatorships, this doesn't happen. Dictatorships often forego tax paperwork in favor of just taking wealth directly. It's common for the dictator to force farmers to sell their produce to him for little, then turn around and sell it on the open market, pocketing the difference at an unthinkably high equivalent tax rate.
This is why places like Venezuela people started to starve. It's not that the Venezuelans can't grow food. It's because the dictator will take it off them, sell it, and enrich himself and his keys rather than have the people eat. It is still comparable to have the people eat cats and dogs and zoo animals than to feed them and have them because feeding them won't gain you anything. Your keys will still need to be fed. But the thing is, you see, this is how terrible somewhere like Venezuela is, because Venezuela has a enormous amount of resources. They don't have to tax the population at all, like places like Dubai. Admittedly, when they say there's no income tax in Dubai, that is true, and there are a lot of tax-free organized businesses, but you pay through so many other ways. You know what I mean? You have to pay through the nose with so many other stealth taxes, tax for this, tax for that, tax for your medical health care, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of other taxes that you pay for. Yes. So but they create an illusion of, it's a tax-free society, whilst you may actually end up paying more than in various stealth taxes and just expensive things like healthcare and car insurance than you would in somewhere like Europe. So it's on balance. When they say it's a tax-free society, it's not the way you think. But either way, yeah, someone like Venezuela, who has an enormous amount of oil resource and other natural resources, their society should be an absolute paradise. It should be 10 times better than somewhere like Dubai. But unfortunately, their government and their leaders are. I guess there's an element of just self-greed that may come into it, but generally they are not really there to take care of the people. It is just them and their keys and their cronies that they're interested in, and possibly foreign interests which was the case, and that's the same in Iran, so on and so forth. There isn't Iran. The Iranian people don't have water, not because it doesn't rain in Iran or they don't have enough reservoirs and rivers. There's literally thousands of rivers and all sorts of different ways of actually having water. It's management of that system that is exceedingly corrupt and inefficient and terrible, just because those people, they themselves have water. They just don't give a shit about the people because it doesn't suit them, just like you can see here. Money wasted on the citizens is just money wasted. Big up, Roy. Good to see you, mate. Javid Shah.
So taxes in democracies are low in comparison to dictatorships. But why do representatives lower their take? Well, cutting taxes is a crowd pleaser. Dictators have no need to please the crowds and thus can take a large percentage from their poor citizens to pay key supporters. But representatives in a democracy can take a smaller percentage from each to pay their key supporters because their educated, freer citizens are more productive than peasants. For rulers in a democracy, the more productivity, the better, which is why they build universities and hospitals and roads and grant freedoms, not just out of the goodness of their hearts, but because it increases citizen productiveness, which increases treasure for the ruler and their key supporters, even when a lower percentage is taken. Democracies are better places to live than dictatorships, not because representatives are better people, but because their needs happen to be aligned with a large portion of the population. The things that make citizens more productive also make their lives better. Representatives want everyone productive, so everyone gets highways. The worst dictators are those whose incentives are aligned with the fewest citizens, those who have the fewest keys to power. This explains why the worst dictatorships have something in common: gold or oil or diamonds or similar. If the wealth of a nation is mostly dug out of the ground, it's a terrible place to live because a gold mine can run with dying slaves and still produce great treasure. Oil is harder, but luckily foreign companies can extract and refine it without any citizen involvement. With citizens outside this cycle, they can be ignored while the ruler is rewarded and the keys to power kept loyal. Thus, we live in a world where the best, smartest democracies are stable, the worst, richest dictatorships are stable, and in between is a valley of revolution. The resource-rich dictators build roads only from their ports to their resources and from their palace to the airport, and the people stay quiet not because this is fine or even because they're scared, but because the cold truth is starving, disconnected illiterates don't make good revolutionaries. Now, a middling dictator without resources must, as mentioned before, take a large amount of wealth directly from his poor farmers and factory workers. Thus, two roads won't do, and so he must maintain some minimums of life for the citizens. But keeping the workforce somewhat connected and somewhat educated and somewhat healthy makes them more able to revolt. Now understand, the romantic image of the people storming the gates and overthrowing their dictator is mostly a fantasy. If you run a middling dictatorship, the people only storm the palace when the army lets them to remove you because you lost control over your keys and are being replaced. This is why, after popular revolts in middling dictatorships, the new ruler is often the same as the old, if not worse. The people didn't replace the king, the court replaced the king, using the people's protest they let happen to do it. The very things a benevolent dictator wants to build to cross this valley take treasure away from the keys to power and make the citizens more able to revolt, often ending in a stronger ruler, less likely to build bridges and more loyal to his keys.
And that is where we're going to find ourselves in a future possible Iran. The fact is that that is exactly the case, that it isn't that the mullahs simply are, if the mullahs go, that it is just the people who really did it. No, it's not. It's because the keys allowed them to do this, and the next guy coming along is not necessarily going to be more benevolent. Now, yes, we're everybody's pointing to the Shah and that he would come. But I would like to remind everyone that the fact is that in various different revolutions in Iraq, for example, when the British overthrew, I forgot who it was, prior. This was prior to Saddam Hussein. They overthrew some dictator or someone that was running Babylon. I think it was called Babylon. This was like pre-World War II. They then replaced him with a king, which they presumed that, well, if a constitutional monarchy is good enough for the British, is good enough for the Iraqis. But what happened was subsequently after that was that the Iraqis, in fact, revolted against that king and killed him. And then through various different international machinations, which is too long to go into, but let's put it this way. The fact is that the CIA, in fact, hired an assassin to execute that king. The assassin fumbled it, believe it or not, and missed. And who was that assassin? What happened to that assassin? Yeah, his name was Saddam Hussein. I wonder what happened to that assassin. But yes, after the king was deposed and killed or whatever in Iraq, then Saddam Hussein was brought into power. So just because you have a popular revolution, that doesn't mean the populace gets what they want. And this is where we are right now with the situation with the Shah of Iran, is that he may or may not, he may very well be the puppet of the Americans and Israelis. And he may talk and boast a good game of constitutional monarchy or a republic, but really the situation is not really going to be in his hand, and it won't really be his choice at the end of it. The fact is that we may end up going out of the frying pan into the fire with this guy as well. I mean, I'm not saying that for me right now, he's the best choice. He's the only stabilizing factor within Iran, because without him, Iran will potentially tear itself apart. But there is no guarantees that he's going to have a long reign. I can promise you that. There are many, many other people who want a piece of the Iranian pie, and he may come in, but he may not last. And if he doesn't last, then whoever comes next could potentially be terrible. Hello, Hassan. Big up to you, mate. Big up to you, John. John, is that John? No, it says John Dunning. It's someone else. A paradigm shift. Exactly.
On the other side, the best democracies are stable, not just because the large number of keys and their competing desires makes dictatorial revolt near impossible to organize, but also because the revolt would destroy the very wealth it intended to capture, the high productivity of the citizens. Plus, those helping the would-be dictator in a democracy know he plans to cull key supporters once in power. That's what a coup is. So potential key supporters must weigh the probability of surviving the cull and getting the rewards versus the risk of being on the outside of a dictatorship they helped create. In a stable democracy, that's a terrible gamble. Maybe you'll be incredibly wealthy, but probably you'll be dead and have made the lives of everyone you know worse. The math says no. Being on the right side of a coup in a dictatorship means having the resources to get you and your family what the peasants lack: healthcare, education, quality of life. This is what makes the competition for power so fierce. But in a democracy, most already have these things, so why risk it? So the more the wealth of a nation comes from the productive citizens of the nation, the more the power gets spread out, and the more the ruler must maintain the quality of life for those citizens. The less. Now, if a stable democracy becomes very poor, or if a resource that dwarfs the productivity of the citizens is found, the odds of this gamble change and make it more possible for a small group to seize power. Because if the current quality of life is terrible, or the wealth not dependent on the citizens, coups are worth the risk. When democracies fall, these are usually the reasons.
That is actually something the Europeans should be looking into, because that is exactly what is happening in Europe. The quality and the standards of life living in Europe has dropped and is dropping rapidly. And that is why they keep talking about Trump is a dictator, this guy's a dictator, because the ruling classes know that once you've bottomed out the treasure of your country, and that you can't tax your population anymore because you've already squeezing the last drops of blood from them, then but the standard of life, the quality of life is just dropping regardless of how much you squeeze the tax out of your population, because you've embarked upon insane policies of forever immigration, forever human rights, and for foreigners that don't even appreciate or even care about your human rights standards. They would take them away from you the second they'll get into power, and also from what's it called? Embarking upon ridiculous and costly experiments of climate control or climate change mitigations. Well, once you do that, and once your population drops to a point in which you no longer can actually sustain your people's quality of life and the standards that they're used to, guess what they'll do? They will vote in a dictator. They will vote in autocracies, because you failed them through democracy, because your policies as a democratically elected in parties or groups failed badly. This is why the ruling classes know this. They know this cycle. They're not blind to it. They are preparing for it. They are literally prepared. Why do you think they're clamping down on your free speech so badly? Because they know that the communication, your lines of communication, is what is going to spark the revolts. It's going to spark the fact that you will vote in a dictator just to get rid of these asswipes that are destroying your society. So they are scared to death of that, and they can see it coming, and they still, for some unfathomable reason, are not changing course. They're still hellbound on this narcissistic, this insane, suicidal mission for utopia, for some sort of socialist, communist utopia within Europe. And they're insane. They're insane, and they're going to sort of sink Europe into an autocratic system. All these European nations are going to pick the most authoritative, autocratic, right-wing politician or group, or ultimately dictator, that they can find, because you're killing them anyway. If you're destroying their lives, who do you think they're going to turn to? Why do you think Trump is so popular? Because the liberals are systematically destroying Western civilization. So yes, they're going to turn to populists and people who are going to promise them the good old days back.
These rules for rulers explain not only why some men are monsters and others are merciful, but everything about politics, from war to foreign aid to political dynasties to corruption, all of which we can talk about at another time. But for now, you, aspiring ruler, may be disgusted by the world of politics and have decided to avoid it entirely. But you cannot, for rulers come in many forms. Yes, kings, presidents, and prime ministers, but also deans, dons, mayors, chairs, chiefs. These rules apply to all and explain their actions, from the CEO of the largest global corporate conglomerate who must keep his board happy to the chair of the smallest homeowners association, managing votes and spending membership fees. You cannot escape structures of power. You can only turn a blind eye to understanding them. And if you ever want the change you dream about, there's a 0th rule you cannot ignore. Without power, you can affect nothing. You may not like these rules, but surely better you on the throne than someone else. And who knows, maybe you'll be different.
Exactly. Maybe you'll be different. So yeah, that's sorry guys, I'm slowly sinking into this thing. So that was just a little quick reminder of where we are when it comes to rules for rulers. Now I'm going to play this next bit. Now this next bit isn't about Iran as such, but it is just to give an idea of the political wranglings that is currently in place and what is happening in the Middle East. Because the Middle East isn't just in flux because of Iran. Iran isn't the only country in the Middle East that is in turmoil and is in flux and has certain people jostling for power and interest within Iran and the future of Iran. But Iran is but a component, a cog, maybe a large cog, but a cog in the wheel of all the different maneuvering that various countries in the Middle East are making. Now, recently, if you may or may not know, Saudi Arabia has had a falling out with the UAE. And I was curious about why, because the UAE and Saudi Arabia usually get along very well. And also Qatar. Qatar has been an outsider for a long time because of their support with Iran. And by the way, if and when the Iranian regime falls, and for a short period of time, we may get a king like Pahlavi or some kind of democracy, who knows? Maybe for a few years we'll get that. And all will be well between Iran and Israel, and all the terrorist funding will dry up, which is true. It will. If Iran and the mullahs go, the terrorist funding will definitely dry up. But don't be under any illusion that the funding for these terrorist organizations will simply go away. There will be plenty of money supplied to them through Qatar. Remember, Qatar is actually, if not the first, but certainly the second source of income and support for various groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and others. Maybe not so much Hezbollah, but definitely Hamas. The Hamas leaders were literally in Qatar when October 7th happened. So remember, Qatar is still very much a large funder of these organizations, and they will continue to do that. And your governments and your politicians and celebrities sit down and break bread with these people all the time. Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson, they were all recently in Qatar, and they've invited a whole host of different celebrities and comedians and all sorts of things to do shows in Qatar as well as in Saudi Arabia now. So they are buttering up the people that you are supposedly getting your news and information from. This is what I've been saying for a long time. The new media space, the so-called YouTube and Twitter and all these other places where supposed new media is around, the old media people are now infiltrating the new media space. They are just simply old mainstream media with a YouTube mask or a Twitter mask. Tucker Carlson is no more trustworthy than when he was on Fox News. Piers Morgan is no more trustworthy than when he was on mainstream news like CNN and Good Morning Britain. They are scumbags. They are still shilling for the governments, the various governments that pay them the most. And right now, the money that is the most that they're getting, the money that or the, should I say, the country that funds them the most is Qatar. And I want to give you guys one little quick hint as to, if you think by the way, this isn't exclusive to the Young Turks, but this is the Young Turks. Also, I just want to point out, they're still getting their money from Qatar. Don't think for one second they're somehow a neutral organization. I know they're liberal sacks of shit, but their core funding still comes from this, and this is what they were shilling some years back before they realized, this may actually not be a good idea to be this obviously associated with Al Jazeera. Let me just rewind this a little bit. This is the Young Turks a few years ago. By the way, this is still available on their website, on their channel, on their YouTube channel. So they're not even hiding it, but we all know that this kind of funding didn't just stop once they stopped advertising for AJ Plus.
Fun for everybody. We've got a new partnership. It's with AJ Plus. That's the digital-only channel for Al Jazeera. And they're doing a bunch of great content. Look, the overall thing is voice of the voiceless.
Yes.
That's pretty good. We like that.
Yes, AJ Plus, which is literally the internet arm of Al Jazeera. So that's who these people serve. Don't ever forget that. They always, and they haven't stopped serving these countries. This is where their loyalties lie. They don't lie with you. They certainly don't lie with the countries that these people are in. They lie every time these asswipes say, I'm an American or I'm a British, like as if that's a statement of loyalty. Don't believe them. That isn't the statement of loyalty. these people are not loyal to the nations that they are in. They are loyal to the pay packets that pay them. They're paymasters, shall we say. That's who they're really loyal to. Okay, I want to play this. I played like 15 minutes of it because overall this is a much bigger, I mean, it's a 40-minute video. There's a lot of things going on here, but I think you'll get, within the first 15 minutes, you're going to get pretty much the gist of what is happening in the Middle East, apart from Iran.
Was a banner year for the United Arab Emirates, a year when victory seemed all but assured and the political masterminds of Abu Dhabi seemed truly unstoppable. In Sudan, the Emirates-backed Rapid Support Forces had engaged in some of the darkest acts known to mankind, and the Emirates had gotten off with hardly a slap on the wrist. In Yemen, a rebel group called the Southern Transitional Council had taken over nearly the entire country, with the Emirates' help, capturing oil, thwarting Saudi Arabia, and demanding recognition as a new sovereign state. In the breakaway regions of Somaliland and Puntland,
By the way, this is why Saudi Arabia was pissed at the UAE, because they're undermining them in Yemen.
the UAE has transformed airports and seaports into the most important points in a new regional axis, and in Libya, it seemed clear just weeks ago that the Emirates were going to make something big happen, and very soon. But across the first few weeks of 2026, the true nature of Abu Dhabi's new axis was revealed for the entire world to see. Not some grand political machination, but a paper tiger, an illusion that would fall apart when faced with even the slightest resistance. The United Arab Emirates have gone from ascendant to retreating in record time, and now there's a very real chance that the UAE will be made to pay for its transgressions, some of which are deadly serious. You see, there's four little letters that really matter in geopolitics. FAFO. And after years
Faff around and find out. And now this is what I mean. There's so many other wheels that are turning in this situation. Iran is not the only thing to focus on. There are lots of other things that are happening. And that is why I am exceedingly nervous about what is happening in Iran. It's because, I mean, I want the Iranians to be free, and it seems simple. Everybody wants to simplify the situation. Oh, Iranians, be free, be free. What's the problem? Well, it's not as easy as that. Your price of your freedom is going to maybe be something that you don't want to pay. That is the irony of this situation, that the price of your freedom may be something you can't afford, because it won't be just that you're free. The fiddler has, you're gonna have to pay the fiddler. The check will come. Maybe you'll have your little moment of freedom at that beginning, but the check will come. But at this stage, these are my people. I don't care. I don't care what the price of that freedom is anymore, because as long as they're free, we may have to pay that price. We may have to pay a big price for the freedom that the Iranians get. I don't know. I hope it's not too severe.
Spent rounds with international affairs across the wider region, it appears that the United Arab Emirates is about to find out. Yemen revived. On the 18th of December 2025, our team at Warfronts published an episode called Yemen is Dead, Here's What Will Replace It. At the time, a powerful breakaway Yemeni faction, the Southern Transitional Council or STC, was on the rise. With the help of Emirati armored vehicles, Emirati-supplied but Chinese-made howitzers, and Emirati advisors on the ground, the STC had thoroughly kicked the arse of Yemen's internationally recognized government, which is, in turn, backed up by Saudi Arabia. During its shock offensive, the STC had taken over most of Yemen's oil fields, the entirety of its border with Oman, and its southern coastline, and so much territory that it could now lay claim to the same area that had once been the former state of South Yemen. As the STC expelled the Republic of Yemen government from the port city of Aden, they proudly began laying out their case for Western onlookers. Recognize them as a sovereign state, give them a few weapons, and they'd get to work kicking the arse of the Houthi rebels, Al-Qaeda, and any other terrorist organization that dared step onto Yemeni soil. Make no mistake, at that moment, the STC really appeared to have done it. The Saudi-backed government, and more importantly, the powerful tribal militias that backed it up, practically had retreated from their territory as the SDC advanced, refusing to fight for cities or strategic highways and even fleeing onto Saudi soil in order to get out of their way. But the SDC and the United Arab Emirates that had backed it for years would soon find out that their celebration was very premature. Now, we should mention for our regular Warfronts viewers that, yes, the plot twist that comes next has been something we've wanted to share with you. But, as you probably noticed, Venezuela, Iran, and the entire Western order have all found their way into the shit. It has indeed been a busy few weeks. But while the world has been transfixed on chaos and upheaval in other countries, Saudi Arabia and its tribal allies got to kicking some serious arse in Yemen. When those tribes made their way onto Saudi soil, they weren't in a state of retreat. They were regrouping, gathering into a single united force that was tens of thousands strong and preparing for a massive counterattack. Nor did they simply plan to carve out a buffer zone or take enough of their own territory back that the Republic.
I do apologize. I might have been muted when I said what I said. I'm just saying, guys, go and give Warfront a subscribe or a like on this video. I posted the link. So I just want to give credit where credit is due. It seems I may have been, said this without being, muted. While I was muted. Sorry, there's a lot going on here. I'm looking at a lot of things here.
Of Yemen government could still survive. They were coming for all of what the SDC had taken, and even the territory that the SDC had lived on for years. And this time, they had air support. Now, in order to understand what happened next, we've got to understand a couple of things about the way that fighting works in Yemen, because it's very different than anything you'd see almost anywhere else on Earth. Military offensives in this part of Yemen take place across massive, empty stretches of desert, using relatively small groups of fighters who can move rapidly in all directions and who tend to travel fairly light. Because they don't have many people to spare, they avoid urban combat, where battles can become very costly very quickly. But between the sheer mobility of an attacking force, the relatively small number of defenders you'll find in a given area, and the fact that nobody wants to fight to the death in cities and towns, this style of warfare overwhelmingly favors an attacking force, no matter which force is doing the attacking. But when it was the STC's turn, Saudi-backed tribal forces had two choices: fight exposed, in the open desert, at risk of being cut off and surrounded by attacking forces that were constantly on the move, or give up territory and live to fight another day. But once the STC had taken all that territory, it had basically switched roles, where now its forces had to choose either to defend in the open desert or retreat. And as hard as it would have been for those Saudi-backed tribes to defend themselves when the STC was ascendant, the STC's problems were promising to be so much worse. After all, the STC had brought that Chinese-made artillery, but the counter-attacking tribes had Saudi air support, and if the STC wanted to defend out in the desert, then they'd be sitting ducks. Once the Saudi-backed counter-offensive began, the result came quickly and decisively. The STC lost its vast holdings in the sparsely populated eastern province.
I just want everyone to take a note of this. This is what Yemen is broken up into. You got the Houthi Yemen, Republic of Yemen. That's the yellow. That's the larger portion here. Then you've got the Houthi rebels. You've got the Southern Transitional Council, and then the had Harem elite forces. This is like Yemen. And by the way, amongst all of this, whilst all this crap is going on, children are starving in their tens of thousands. Literally tens of thousands of children are starving in Yemen. People are just starving. Death and destruction is everywhere. How many protests in the last few years did you see for the Yemen? How many people were screaming, "Let Yemen be free"? Saudi and Emirates, pull yourselves, take your hands off Yemen. Nothing. You don't hear a word about this. Literally 3 times more children have died in Yemen over the last few years of their conflict, like, I don't know, 7, 6, 7, 7, 8 years, maybe more, than in Gaza. Just quadruple amount of people have died in Yemen than they've done in Gaza over the last 2-3 years. And yet nothing, not a freaking word. This is why you can be assured that these morons in the streets of London and Berlin and whatever with their little cafes, this is all propaganda. This is manufactured. These are not organic shit, because these people don't give a shit about people. Oh, I mean, when I say it's organic, there is somewhat degree of actual setup and funding by people, places like IRGC, but also the fact that these assholes, leftist white middle class idiots who think that Yemen doesn't matter but Gaza is everything, is because they've been influenced by essentially Jew hatred. This is blatant Jew hatred. This isn't. This is just out and out. They despise the Jews. They don't care if Yemenis starve and die, but they lose their freaking mind because of if a bunch of Gazans are killed from a war that they started. By the way, at least the Yemeni people. Then you can argue these are different groups and being funded by Saudi Arabia, Emirate nations, conflicting interests and all of that shit. But most of these people, they didn't even attack like an outside country. This is just internal squabbling. But nobody gives a shit. No one actually cares, because these lefties don't actually care about human rights. It's performative virtue signaling bullshit.
Of Hadramaut and Al-Mahra, including the oil fields, the border crossings, and the lucrative southern coastline. Then they lost the Southern Territory, where they'd been entrenched for many years, and where their separatist movement had real support among the local population. They lost the city of Aden, which they'd held in a practical sense for quite a long time, despite allowing the Republic of Yemen to set up a seat of government there. Finally, they were chased into a sliver of southwestern coastline, where they would be trapped between Houthi forces to the north and incoming Saudi-backed forces from the east. Before long, high-level SDC officials were switching their allegiance, choosing to voice support for the Republic of Yemen government rather than allow themselves to be purged in the aftermath. The SDC's leader fled on a boat across the Red Sea and was then ferried back to the Emirates in disgrace. By January the 9th, the SDC was formally dissolved despite opposition from some of its internal elements, and what had recently looked like the birth of a new nation was confirmed as one of the most stunning military reversals of the modern day. As for the Emirates, they didn't decide to try and hold the line, they didn't send air support, they didn't send mercenaries, and they didn't take any of the other steps that might have allowed their proxy allies to survive. Instead, they left the nation before the counter-offensive was even complete, pulling their military support from the SDC and dooming it to a final collapse. Now, we tell the story of the rise and fall of the SDC, partially to correct the record. Contrary to our earlier statements, it turns out Yemen isn't dead at all. It just fell into a deep coma for a few weeks and proceeded to make a full recovery. Congratulations to the internationally recognized government. But even a quick glance at the runtime of this episode should probably make it clear the story that we're going to discuss today goes well beyond the victory of Saudi-backed forces in Yemen. Dramatic as it may have been, the SDC's defeat is just one in a series of major setbacks that the UAE is facing, not in its gilded cities at home, but across the growing proxy network that it spent years cultivating abroad. Collapse of the new axis. Now, when you think of a Middle Eastern axis of proxy forces, you probably think of the nation of Iran, and, well, rightly so. But while Iran's network of current and former proxy allies have captured the international headlines over the last several years, Tehran is far from the only Middle Eastern capital cultivating an influence network across the Muslim world. Turkey, for example, leans on anti-Kurdish militias across the region and has arguably claimed the new Syrian government for its own proxy network. Saudi Arabia, as we've mentioned, treats the internationally recognized Republic of Yemen as a proxy force. But it's the United Arab Emirates that's been the most active and arguably the most creative in its proxy operations across the Middle East and North Africa. The most important parts of Abu Dhabi's regional network stretch across a total of 4 nations: Yemen, Somalia, Libya, and Sudan. In each of those nations, Abu Dhabi follows a broadly similar playbook, providing its support not to the internationally recognized government, but to a powerful rival faction that holds land, exerts political control over that land, and has autonomous fighting forces at its disposal. In Yemen, of course, that was the Southern Transitional Council, a group that had formally established peaceful arrangements with the internationally recognized government for a few years, but was an independent actor, even if it was playing nicely. In Libya, the Emirates support the warlord Khalifa Haftar and his Libyan National Army, which currently controls a majority of Libya's territory, its oil fields, and its other economic assets. In Somalia, the Emirates work with all sides, but they're primarily involved with the breakaway, mostly unrecognized state of Somaliland and the autonomous region of Puntland. Finally, in Sudan, the Emirates support the Rapid Support Forces, a predominantly ethnic Arab fighting force that claimed a major portion of Sudanese territory, carried out regular wartime atrocities, and is currently perpetrating a horrific genocide under the cover of that conflict. Now, we're not going to spend too much time discussing the finer points of Emirati geopolitical strategy and fleshing out why they've chosen to support those proxy groups or what they've been trying to accomplish. If you'd like to learn more, we'll refer you to our excellent premium subscription site, Fronts.co, where in late December we published an in-depth article all about why the Emirates have been doing all of this. The article is actually free to read, you don't need to be a subscriber, and while it was written at the time when the STC was still doing well, it's an enjoyable blast from the recent past. And by the way, if you do want to subscribe to Fronts.co, that costs just $5 a month or $50 a year, and you'll get access to geopolitical, the Emirates proxy strategy. Now, shameless plugs are reported, overlooked, and misunderstood geopolitical issues from across the globe. Now, shameless plugs aside, the two most important things to understand about the Emirates proxy strategy are these. Number one, the Emirates prefers to do business with non-state, land-holding actors because they don't have to play by the rules of the international order, they don't tend to have very strict limits on what the UAE can or can't do on their territory, and because they're largely ostracized by the rest of the world, the UAE can exert a controlling influence by providing them with any support at all. And number two, these proxy forces allow the Emirates to keep tabs on the specific parts of the world, and particularly the maritime shipping routes that the Emirates needs to keep stable in order to ensure the uninterrupted sale of its oil. From Libya, the Emirates can influence the volatile southeastern Mediterranean. From Yemen and Somalia, the Emirates can watch the Gulf of Aden. And if or when the RSF takes over the rest of Sudan, the UAE will gain a critical foothold on the shores of the Red Sea. Of course, these proxy alliances come with lots of other fringe benefits for the Emirates, but those are the main ones that you need to be aware of. Across late 2025 and early 2026, the Emirates' setbacks across its proxy network have been most noticeable in Yemen for all the reasons that we just laid out with the expansions and collapse of the STC. But elsewhere across the network, there have been other changes that have been, shall we say, less favorable for Abu Dhabi, and in each case, those changes have reversed what had seemed to be meaningful progress. We'll start with both Libya and Sudan in a part of the...
Again, I wanna stress that although this seems to be a bit long-winded, it's just the fact that I'm trying to point out that these are the other cogs, other wheels that are turning in the Middle East and across North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Actually, just these are the political landscape in that region. So if you think that only Iran is of interest in that region at the moment, that's just because they happen to be catching all the headlines. But when they're catching the headlines, these other things are still ongoing. Admittedly, these have been ongoing for the last few years, but right now, Iran's change of government is going to come at a it's going to be very tricky. That's my thing. That's my assessment. I'm going to give you my assessment of what I think the whole thing is going to be, what is happening essentially with, or what is going to happen with Iran potentially. After just a few more minutes of this, and then I'm going to end this one because at the moment, as I say, I don't really. This is all just giving you an oversight of all the other things that are happening, which are not necessarily in your preview, or certainly not going to be on your BBCs and your Sky and whatever other mainstream news outlet you're gonna consume. You're never going to see this on Tucker Carlson. You're never going to hear about this with Mr. Piers Morgan, because they are just hollow shills for various countries at the moment. I think Qatar is their biggest payday, so they're going to shill for Qatar. TYT, has always shilled for Qatar for decades now. So they're never going to show you any of this stuff either, because these people don't really care. They're not actual reporters, journalists, or Middle Eastern analysts. They don't. They're just clickbaiters, and they just jump on whatever the most popular bandwagon is. That's all they give a shit about.
Region referred to as the Tri-Border Zone. There, the Emirates have been working on a pet project for months now, the Al Kufra airport, situated on Libyan territory under Khalifa Haftar's control and refurbished over the span of the last year or so.
By the way, who knew? How many of you actually knew who is running Libya right now? Could you post it in the chat? In fact, give me the name of this guy that he just mentioned. What did he say? Let's have a little review, class. Who did he even mention? What was the guy's name? Oh my God! Thank you so much, Lieutenant. Lieutenant has gifted one membership to a person was gifted. I love you, HAFEZ. I love you. Received the gifted membership to a couple of burkers. Thank you, Lieutenant. You're the best. Love, Lieutenant. Actually, let me show. Oh, there we go. We can show it. We've got this facility. Sorry, I'm running Restream at the moment, so it was just easier than getting my OBS up and running. But yeah, thank you, Lieutenant, for that. Yeah, who remembered the name of the Khalifa of Libya right now? Who's running Libya right now? Come on, Bueller. I'll wait. Most people don't even fucking remember who's even running. The guy just mentioned his name just like a second ago, and you probably can't even remember it. So this is what I mean. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody really cares.
Al Kufra working on a pet project for months now, the Al Kufra airport, situated on Libyan territory under Khalifa Haftar's control and refurbished over the span of the last year or so. Al Kufra has turned into an absolutely critical supply node for the Emirates, receiving Emirati strategic airlifters which can then be safely unloaded. Their cargo is packed into truck convoys carrying heavy loads across the Haftar-controlled border zone into Libya and the RSF-controlled border zone in Sudan to support the RSF on the front lines. While the RSF was being adequately supplied before Al Kufra went fully operational.
Now, sorry, before I just want to point out, I've been to some Sudanese protests in London, although the moronic Palestinians try to co-opt it all the time and they start screaming from the river to the sea. But there has actually been protests in London to try to highlight and bring some kind of attention to the Sudanese issue. No one mentions UAE's involvement in it. Not one person has ever mentioned to me that the UAE is actually causing a lot of these deaths and destruction by supplying these groups and the whatever group that's continuing the conflicts. Nobody mentions that. I hope so, Ivy.
Mostly through cross-border smuggling from Chad and intermittent cargo flights, the start of full-scale operations through Al Kufra has come with massive benefits for the insurgency. When the airfield surged into full-time use in the spring of 2025, the RSF appeared to be losing ground. Since then, they've rallied, captured Sudan's entire Darfur region, annihilated what may have been over 100,000 civilians in its apocalyptic conquest of El Fasher, and now opens up new fronts in central Sudan where the nation's military regime is under intense pressure. But over the span of the last couple of weeks, supply convoys traveling toward RSF territory have come under attack as they move through the tri-border region. Those attacks appear to have been carried out via airstrike, by warplane, or drone assets under the control of the Sudanese armed forces, and they've crippled multiple RSF convoys. The most recent strike, as of the time of writing, came on the 9th of January, and in that case, it wasn't the Sudanese armed forces that carried out the strike, but rather Egypt, according to unverified but broadly credible information leaking out of the region. And in order to really explain why this matters, we should be very clear. The fact that these convoys were bombed is not because the Sudanese military or Egypt suddenly came into possession of a new type of weapon that it didn't possess previously. Both the Sudanese military and the Egyptian government have been able to hit these convoys since they've started traveling the region. Up until late December, that hadn't happened. But somewhere, for some reason, some strategic decision maker appears to have changed his mind. Now, according to RSF sources, the group is having to consider the possibility that it'll have to reroute convoys toward far longer and slower journeys, cutting its ability to sustain those frontline victories. New flight path mapping in early 2026 shows that sensitive aircraft traveling from the Emirates to Libya now have to avoid Sudanese, Yemeni, Egyptian, and Saudi airspace, meaning that they've got to fly south through the Gulf of Aden, through Djibouti, Ethiopia, and South Sudan, and briefly over the Central African Republic before turning north to fly across Chad and then finally reach Libya. That's a journey that some Emirati aircraft can manage, but the Aleutian strategic airlifters that they rely on for their RSF supply operations cannot accomplish that without stopping to refuel. Then there's the situation in Somalia, where after decades of trying and failing to gain recognition as a sovereign state, Somaliland finally received its first endorsement by another nation, thanks to Israel. While it wasn't the Emirates that recognized Somaliland first, Israel is a quiet but very close ally of the Emirates in the Middle East, with the two countries collaborating frequently on security and intelligence matters. Israel, with its closeness to an American administration that's toyed with the idea of recognizing Somaliland, was a particularly meaningful friend for the Emirates to lean on. That recognition only just took place on the 26th of December 2025, and according to insider reports, there were plans for several other countries to follow suit. Those included the Emirates, but also Ethiopia, which has waffled back and forth on Somaliland for years. For both the Emirates and Israel, recognition of Somaliland could have cleared the way to prompt significant leaps forward. The Emirates has control of a major port and a critical airfield in Somaliland, as well as similar assets in neighbouring Puntland, and it would have stood to gain massively from an international community that was more than willing to engage with those holdings after a green light from Israel and elsewhere. The UAE also uses those airfields to funnel support toward the RSF and would have been able to better coordinate with a sovereign Somaliland instead of going through Mogadishu. Both Abu Dhabi and Jerusalem use Somaliland as an intelligence gathering and regional surveillance hub and could have massively stepped up those efforts if they'd been able to build a more formal, internationally accepted, overt relationship with independent Somaliland. But even though Israel and the Emirates already understood that recognizing Somaliland would generate some backlash, that resistance appears to have been far greater than they've anticipated. The move was rejected by most of the Muslim world, including power players across the Middle East and as far away as Indonesia. The Somali federal government, which has long had its own fragile but important relationship with the Emirates, didn't decide to grit its teeth and bear Abu Dhabi's decision, but instead severed ties with the Emirates outright. That decision was opposed by Somaliland and Puntland, as well as the increasingly autonomous southern region of Jubaland, but it drew support from across the African Union, where Israel's decision and the Emirates' clear role in that decision have been the source of immense frustration. Over the last week or
Okay,
the Emirates have started removing military hardware from parts of Somalia, particularly from an important airfield in Puntland's port city of Bosaso, where, for the first time in years, Emirati strategic airlifters are no longer continuing their journey toward RSF smuggling routes. While the Emirates' operations in Somaliland have been able to continue somewhat normally, even their air traffic there has been diminished, and now it appears that Saudi Arabia is looking to play a larger role in Somalia to fill the gap that the Emirates will leave behind. And even in Libya, where the Emirates has chosen to maintain a relatively stable, quiet relationship with the Haftar government, there had been growing indicators that something was on the horizon, even if it wasn't quite clear what that something was. During the final months of 2025, Haftar and his allies had gone about a reformation of their military structure, participated frequently in unusual meetings with important regional backers like Egypt and Turkey, and they'd sealed a $4 billion arms deal with Pakistan to procure Chinese-made JF-17 warplanes and other warfighting equipment. They'd even stood to benefit from what appeared to be a very timely accident when, on the 28th of December, the military chief in control of Libya's other government, the internationally recognized one, was killed in a plane crash shortly after taking off from an airport.
He was killed by a plane crash. That doesn't happen at all when the jackals... That is not part of the jackals' method of taking out certain key people at all. That has never happened. I wonder what. Anyway, I don't want to labor this. If anyone wants to watch the rest of this this actual video, because the whole thing is actually 40 minutes long. It is quite a long analysis, and it's very deep, and it's excellent. Don't get me wrong, it is quite excellent. but it is not to my purpose to finish this whole thing off. And besides, it's going to be way too long for me to finish it off. It's not really what I wanted the stream to be about. What I want the stream to be about is really, as I said, essentially Iran, and it's my prediction of its future, possibly. Now, let me see. Yeah, I think we've got enough. Now, we do know that there is an armada that is headed to the Gulf of Oman by the Americans. So the Americans are definitely headed that way. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to apologize for the quality of some of the imagery here, because I just can't seem to find a better one. But yeah, yes, there is an armada headed to. There is an armada headed to the Gulf of Oman right now by the United States, and that the future of Iran, is it going to be in the hand of Mr. Pahlavi, or is it going to rely elsewhere? And for those of you, what do you call it? For people like Mr. Hassan in the chat, who is clearly a hater and a detractor. Yes, we all know exactly where Reza Pahlavi lies, where his loyalties lie, and where he is going, whose his friends are going to be. We're not under any illusion, sir. Don't think for 1 second that we don't know where Mr. Pahlavi has been. He's already been at the wall. He's already touched the wall. He's already been given the approval of the people, the chosen people of God. But what you don't realize, Hassan, is that we're at a stage that we don't care. We don't care. Yes, we know that Mr. Pahlavi is very much has been given the good graces and has been given the all clear of the people of the chosen people of God. Yes, we know that. We know that. We don't care. We don't care because we got to get rid of the mullahs. Your hatred of Jews and Israel will not surpass our love for a free Iran. I'm sorry. Our love for a free Iran trumps your hatred of the Israeli state and the Jewish people. That's how it's going to be. So if we have to be friends, and why not be friends with the Jews? We love the Jewish people. The Jewish people in Iran, I know you're Turkish, your Ottoman Empire practically wanted to extinguish them from the planet, and you and the Germans, who by the way, your country was very friendly with during the First World War, and probably still very friendly with during the Second World War, would be happy to exterminate these people from the face of the planet. But unlike you, we Iranians are not of you. We are not with you. We're not the same as you, and we don't support your hatred of the Jewish people. In fact, we gave them sanctuary. We Iranians and we Persians, Cyprus, our great king, gave the Israelites sanctuary from the Babylonians, and the Jews have been an integral part of Iranian society for thousands of years, literally thousands of years. So yes, we love the Jews. We want to help. We want the Jews to help us. We will be friends with the Jews. We will help the Jews, and we will be we will have allegiance with the Jewish people and the Americans, of course, because we don't hate these groups, because we're not out to try to extinguish them from the planet. We want to work with them. We are. In fact, there are many Iranians that are Jewish Iranians. So I'm sorry, your hatred for the Jews will not override our love for a free Iran, and we will not capitulate. We will be friends with them, and we will work with them. And that is how it's going to be, whether you like it or not, whether you object to it or not, whether you despise it or not. This is why, by the way, this is why we don't get mainstream support for, in our demonstrations. This is why we don't have celebrities or left-wing celebrities cheering for us, because we are not. Because it's not because we're not brown enough. It's not because the blood of Iranian children spilt on the cities of Iran are not red enough. It's because we march with an Israeli flag next to us. We march with the American flag and the British flag actually with us. That is why we don't get the mainstream support anymore. This is, in fact, I can show you. Let me just see if I can show you our demonstration on. Sorry, hold on. Let me show you our demonstration last week. Let me see if I can make it a little bit get in there with some of the marches and the flags. I just want to. There, that's a good one, actually. That was a good one I had just a few minutes ago. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to get a good image of the Iranians with let me just bring it up so you can all see it. Yeah. Yeah. You see the Israeli flags. Let me kill the sound because it's just them talking. But yeah, you see that British flag there. Okay, I've gone a bit there. You see the British flag on the man's back there. Obviously, a lot of Iranian flags, the Persian flag. This is the other group actually joining us from behind because there was two groups coming together. But yeah, we have Israeli flags. You see those Israeli flags? Yeah, that's why we don't get the support of celebrities, left-wing celebrities in the UK, because we dare to have Israeli flags at our marches. So it's clear who these people support, and these lefties. They support the enemies of Britain. They support the enemies of America, West, and of course, the enemies of Israel. They hate these groups. They are your enemy within. Every time they march, you should know they are the enemy within. They are in your country. That's why they don't support us. That's why they won't support the Iranian marchers, the Iranian protesters, because they hate us because we love you. Ironically, it seems a lot of Israeli flags. Yes, there is a lot of Israeli flags. Absolutely, because we don't hate the Jews, and we certainly don't hate Israel. That's why there's a lot of Israeli flags, and you'll see a lot more Israeli and American and British flags in the Iranian protests than you'll ever see at a Palestinian protest or any of the other left-wing bollocks, because our people dying is not the right kind of people dying. If we were dying on the streets of Tehran and Esfahan and Shiraz with a without supporting Israel, then maybe we would get some of the attention from the BBC. But because we're not the right kind of brown people that are dying in the streets of a foreign nation, then we don't care. This is exactly the same. I mean, the Yemenis just don't get any. The Yemenis don't even like Israel. They launched rockets towards Israel, and the Yemeni children still get ignored because they are not direct. Maybe they did that just to get a bit of attention from the global left, because they figured if we attack Israel, maybe we'll get some cameras pointed to our dead children, to our starving kids. It should be multiple flags all over the world. No, it shouldn't be multiple flags. I don't care for Palestine. I don't care for Saudi Arabia or for Emirate nations, or for Djibouti. Why should I have a South African flag in there? By the way, the South Africans don't support us because they support Hezbollah. They support the Hamas. That's why you don't hear anything from the South Africans. That's why you don't hear anything from the UN. By the way, you notice the UN is awfully silent about. Nobody's trying to take the what do you call the Ayatollah Khamenei to the International Court of Justice. How come the International Court of Justice is so silent on the Khamenei and what he's doing, and yet they were desperate to try to take Netanyahu to court? How is it? How is it that Netanyahu is the one that needs to be dragged to court for a so-called genocide when an actual genocide is happening right now in Iran, and South Africa isn't exactly breaking a sweat to take the Ayatollahs to or the Ayatollah Khamenei to the international courts? No, none of that shit. No, it's all about the tariffs, guys. The Donald. Yes, it's all about it. But yeah, you see, we have. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of Iranian-based flags because, well, this is an Iranian Shah protest. But yeah, look at that. A man with an Israeli flag walking through our protests without having to fear for his life. Isn't that incredible? He can actually walk amongst the Iranians and not have to worry about being killed. Whilst I guarantee you wouldn't be able to do that in a Palestinian march or any leftist march. Hell, you can take an Israeli flag to Just Stop Oil and you get beaten up for it. Italy, France. Actually, let's put the Donald up. We need to see the Donald 69. The Donald 69. I don't think he's 69. Isn't he 47? Or 48? No, I think he's 47. Italian, France, Spain, Norway, Germany, etc. flags. No, because those countries aren't doing dick for. What are the Italians and the French and the Spanish and the Germans are doing for the Iranians? I don't see them exactly make it. In fact, even the British cowardly politicians are not doing shit because we know Keir Starmer hates us. Keir Starmer isn't on us. We love Britain because Britain is where we live, but we know Keir Starmer doesn't give a shit about us. That's why he doesn't declare the IRGC as a terror organization. I'm proving you made up your claim. 7 out of 10 aeroplane crashes are not accidental. That's who. I guess he's not talking to me because I never made such a claim. False claim according to the data. Would you like to see it? I'm not sure. A couple of Burks. I'm not. I guess I didn't make that claim, so I think he must be talking to someone else. I see. I don't know. I'm getting. I guess you guys are talking amongst yourselves. This is not addressing me. But yeah, that's our protests. By the way, go to HAFEZ TV, like and subscribe. But yeah, this is what Iranian protests look like. That's why we don't get left-wing support, because we don't exactly toe the line of the leftists. Now, whilst this is running, I want to give you my thoughts on the whole entire Iranian-Israel American trifactor situation. The fact of the matter is that everybody knows, and if you don't know, then you should know, that this uprising, although initially started with the merchants, which we call bazaris, about the fact that inflation is so high that it's ridiculous, that the Iranian money is now completely worthless as far as the dollar is concerned. It's literally worth $0 now. So there's no amount of Iranian money that you can buy a dollar with. It's insane. So hyperinflation, which by the way was induced by the Americans, the American and Israeli assets are on the ground, whether they are Mossad or CIA, who cares? They are on the ground to ferment. After the merchants sort of started protesting, they wanted to accelerate that protest, which is what it is now, which is into at the moment quasi-revolution, which is essentially what we want. Iranians, we want it anyway, but that is what came out of those initial protests, and there'll be others. And yes, we know Israel and America are going to have assets on the ground to help us with that, and we're okay with that. We want that. So people who are like, oh, the Israeli morons like Anna Kasparian talking about, this is Israeli and America's CIA trying to foment revolution. Yes, that's okay. We want that. What of it? Like, you're saying something that is going to offend me or upset me in some form or fashion. No, we want the CIA and Mossad to help us overthrow these dictatorial, theocratical bastards that are killing us and oppressing us. Thank you. Thank you, Mossad. Thank you, CIA. You screwed us over back in the 50s. Now, some say for good or bad, but you screwed us over with Mohammed Mossadegh. But hopefully you can correct that issue by helping us get rid of these assholes. That's yes, it's okay. We want it. So number one, anyone who thinks that we Iranians are somehow going to be upset if they mention that there's Mossad and CIA agents on the ground in Iran fomenting this revolution, you're not. You're not going to upset us. We're okay with that. Number two, yes, right now, Iranian interests coincide with Israeli interests. I agree. We are right now in a right now we are aligned. The Iranian people's interests, Israeli interests, American interests are in line with each other, and that is why we are happy for the Israelis to help us, and we will be happy to be good partners with them in a new free Iran. But eventually, or at some stage, the Israeli interests and American interests will veer away from the Iranian people's interests. And that is a possibility that if Iran falls into some sort of massive civil war where all the different ethnic minority groups want to tear a piece of Iran for themselves and have their own country. The Kurds want a Kurdistan. Maybe Azeris would want some kind of Iranian Azerbaijan or Lor or the Baluch or whoever the ethnic group is, ethnic or religious segments, maybe even. They may want to tear Iran apart and have a piece of their own. And in that situation, I will be honest, Israel's interests are to make sure that Iran is neutralized so that Iran can't threaten Israel. Now, whether Iran is neutralized by having a democratic, free society and a free government in which it's happy to work with with Israel as allies and as friends, they're happy, great. Or if Iran tears itself apart and it's in a quagmire and civil war for the next 20 years, just as good. They don't care. It's not within Israel's interest for Iran to be a stable country or not to be a stable country. As long as Iran is not a threat to Israel, that's all they care about. So if Iran is torn apart and is in perpetual civil war for the next 20, 30 years, Israel won't care, because as long as they're not a threat to Israel. America, as long as the Iranian oil is sold in petrodollars, or somehow Iran is unable to even sell its oil because it's a massive civil war and it's not even able to refine any oil, then that's just as good. America doesn't care if Iran is a stable and a prosperous country, as long as they're not a threat globally. And same with Israel. This is where the Israeli-American interests will veer away from the Iranian interests, because obviously I want Iran to be a stable, prosperous country. And the transitional government, be it Pahlavi or anyone else, I hope will eventually get to that point where we are a stable democracy and, a prosperous nation where people are thriving and the oil money is being spent on the people, rather than, of course, as we saw with the keys to power, rules for rulers, obviously there'll be a lot of money being spent on the keys, but hopefully we'll have a benevolent enough of a dictator that will also spend the money on infrastructure and the people will have a reasonable modicum of quality of life, and the keys will also be rich. Who knows? I mean, the keys will always be taken care of. So that's it. That's it. So that's my opinion, that at the moment the Israeli-American interests align with the Iranian people, but at some point when that veers away, then we'll see who our real friends are and who are our enemies. And people like Hassan and the Turks will happily sit back and watch Iran burn to the ground, or continue with an Islamist oppressive regime whilst they enjoy the comfort of Britain and other places. And I saw, by the way, a bunch of Turks protesting outside the embassy with Iranian regime flags and chanting for the Iranian regime. So the Turks are not our friends. We know that. They never were, and they're never going to be. But I will tell you this, and the irony is that your hatred, Hassan, for because you're not even religious, you despise Islam, you're an anti-Islam person yourself, and you've been treated quite badly by these Islamists at Speaker's Corner. You know, people have spat at you and done all sorts of nasty shit to you. You despise Islam, and yet you hate the Jews so much that you that you rather Iran to burn to the ground, or Iran to continue under an Islamist mullah regime, than for them to be even a puppet of the Jews and the Israelis. I mean, that's insane. By the way, Donald, I didn't time you out. I'm not timing anyone out. It must have been someone else in one of the admins, one of the mods. Mods, I don't know what they did or didn't do, but somebody timed you out. So I'll be honest, I mean, I'm a mod. How come I don't even see other mods timing anyone out? I don't even see it. Yeah, I'm a mod myself, so I don't even see who's timed you out. Either way, I didn't time you out, mate. Don't get all bent out of shape. Try to get over it. Try to live with it. There you go. I've even highlighted your message there, Donald. I'm not sure who's timed you out. Okay, just a mod then, no problems. Yeah. I don't even bother with timing people out because I don't have time. I'm doing other shit. So yeah, no one's timed anyone out. Yeah, I know. I don't see it on the list. It doesn't even show up as anyone getting timed out. So I don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, these are little dramas. Iranian people. Let's see from Juice. Iranian people are the only friends. Iranian people are the only friends for Iranian people. To be honest with you, that's how it should be for everyone. The British should be the only friends for the British, and they should look out for themselves. And they have, allegiances with other nations for mutual benefit. But nobody's anybody's friend. You think after the hundreds of years of war between the French and the British, the French are friends of the British? You honestly believe after the last century of the fucking around and finding out between Germany and Britain, are the Germans friends of the British? You honestly think that these countries actually are friends? The only semi-friendship that I can possibly even muster to say is the Americans and the Israelis, and that's because of how much America has gone on, gone on the limb for Israel through the Security Councils and the vetoes and all the other fundings and so on and so on. I would say if there's any level of friendship, is probably the only country that I can even mention is the British, as the Americans and the Israelis. Other than that, no country is really friends with any country. They just have mutual interests, and if those interests part, believe me, the French and the Brits, the Germans and the other European nations, they'll go to war within a heartbeat of each other. They are not friends. They are just they just have mutual interests, and their mutual interests are so entwined at the moment with the European Union, etc., etc., is that they are just stopping themselves from killing each other because they are massively entwined economically, and so nobody wants to really sort of rock that boat or turn over these apple carts. But no, they're not friends. They've never been friends for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. They've all invaded and conquered and murdered each other all over the shop. These people are not friends of each other. You're deluded to think these nations are friends of each other, especially the Europeans. Just take 5 minutes out of your time, look up European history, and tell me how these nations got along. This is nonsense. At best, they've just been holding from killing each other for like short of maybe not even 100 years. Barely 100 years. They haven't killed each other. And by the way, that's the same story in the Middle East. In fact, the Middle East is still ongoing. And Africa. You can see all the things that are going on in Africa, and all the various different wars and killings and all that. No, none of these countries are friends. None of these are, hell, I'll even put a question mark over the friendliness and the friendship and the unity between American states. Even the states within America, the 50 states, there are fractures amongst them. Anyway, let's see what's this. The last HAFEZ, I wish for all for all Iranian people to have their own freedom and get whatever they want by their hands. Yes, me too, Juicy. Juco, Jack. I'm going to go with Jack. I'm just going to say Jack. Thank you, Jack. Yes, I hope so too. What is Hassan hating on Jews for? Inbreeding folks just want to fight. Has you're talking about inbreeding, and you know what goes on in the Middle East? I'm not even sure the Turks are completely out of that. You guys, you do know we are from the groups of people that practice some of the highest rates of first cousin marriages, right? The Turks, the Iranians, the Middle East overall practices the largest amount of first cousin marriages, and you wanna start besmirching people for inbreeding? It's hard to love Zionists. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to love Zionists. It's very easy. You should try it. Imagine all the people living for today. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Okay, enough of this cringe. I'm ending this thing. Thank you guys for coming. We are done, ladies and gentlemen, for another brief show. If anyone wants for me to run a panel show tonight, give me a 66, or actually no, give me a 666, and I will end this stream and start a new stream with a panel open. But for now, I'm going to end this one because I want this to be a standalone as it is. Rather play in Tel Aviv. I'd rather play in Tel Aviv. Well, you can. If you love the Jews and the Zionists, you can play in Tel Aviv. Anyway, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I will bid you adieu, and I'll catch you on the next stream. Yes. The Donald wants a 69. I've only got one. I need at least 10 69s before I can do that. And there's 666. There you go. There's two. That's not enough. If you guys actually, I've got 16 people watching. So if I can get 10, eat first bags. I'm done. I've eaten. I'm not. It's not a food thing. With a zircon. So okay, I've got 2, but I need 10. If I don't get 10, I'm out of here. Welcome, HAFEZ. it was interesting to chat in your stream. Thank you, Jack. And yeah, Jack, if you see me live with a panel open, by all means, jump on. I'd love to talk to you guys. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you adieu. You ain't got 10 friends. He's right. It's true. I probably don't have 10 friends. Peace.
We're HAFEZ, your weatherman. And have we got news for you? Let's get ready, all you lonely girls, and leave those umbrellas at home. Humidity's rising. Barometer's getting low. How low, girl? According to all sources. What sources now? The street's the place to go.